Hello and welcome to episode 1 of the National League Natter review show, coming at you every Monday with a brand new co-host. So obviously you'll know me and my voice from the preview show with Lauren we do on a Friday, soon to become Thursday. But to my right hand side, we've got a new co-host for the review in Chris. And Chris, first of all, welcome onto the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you here. But
Thank you very
also,
much.
I think it's fair to say that we've probably had quite opposite emotions and feelings in the first week. Is that fair? Because for those that don't know, Chris is a Barnet fan, so we brought him on for that sort of competitive rivalry angle of the season, because obviously Oldham and Barnet are expected, quotation marks, to be up at the right end of the table battling it out. But going off game week number 1, that didn't really happen. I mean, Oldham got off to an absolute flyer, which I'll obviously touch upon as we progress. But it's not really been the most ideal weekend for you as a Barnet fan, has it, Chris?
No, it's not been the greatest of starts, but looking forward to the pod. But yeah, 2-1 defeat to start to Halifax was not how I expected us to start, especially after being unbeaten in pre-season. But nevertheless, we move on. But we'll see what happens.
Exactly, and the good thing is there's 45 games to go, so it's
Exactly. We've got
nobody's
time
gonna.
to turn it around. We'll turn it around, I'm sure.
Nothing ever gets won or lost in the first maybe 3, 4, 5 weeks of the season anyway. So yeah, I'm sure you'll be up there. But to start with, then we were going to touch. We don't have really a strict running order for this show. Really, it's what kind of catches our eye, and then we'll take it from there. So we thought to start the new season, we should start with two of the new boys in the division. As new boys recently relegated from League Two, Sutton United, and new boys up from National League. Is it National League South?
I think it's North. I think it's
Oh,
North.
sorry, National League
Pretty sure it's
North.
the North.
Tamworth come head to head together on opening day, Chris. So, do you want to talk to us a little bit about that encounter and how that went?
Yeah, well, to be fair, I thought Sutton even, we're going to just blaze it. But thing is with Tamworth, they've gone up the last 2 seasons and they've really showed that maybe they're the unexpected team of this league. Having a 1-1 draw against Sutton and even took the lead 84 minutes. So I think they're a team we may need to watch out on. People probably have predicted them to go down, which is fair enough. But I don't know. I think people may have made a mistake with that one, to be fair.
I think with the sort of new teams, obviously you have more of an idea, don't you? As I guess bigger teams in this division of probably what the teams in League Two are capable of, because you might have played them a couple of seasons ago. But the teams that have come up from the north and south, I think it was fair to say they're probably more unknown quantities for us, because I'm not gonna lie, I don't spend my time watching the North and South. So, I think that can sort of, they can use that to their advantage, and people might be writing Tamworth off, like you say, and then they won't feel the pressure of that, and then they can use that and turn it into a positive, which they have done on opening day. And I think a 1-1 draw to a team that people are expecting to be up there. Number one, because of them dropping out of the higher league last year, but number two, because they've just secured some pretty heavy investment and had a pretty big turnover of players in the summer. I think that's a result they've got to be proud of, isn't it, really?
Oh, 100%. I think for them going into the first game against the newly relegated team, to go and get a draw against the team that should really be up there in the playoffs, maybe just outside, just because this league is so close anyway. So I think they can be very happy with that, and that's a good result to kick on confidence for the team and to see, you know what, if we can get a point against Sutton, you don't know what you can do against other teams in this division. So
Yeah.
I think they're ones to watch for definitely the next couple weeks, and to see how they can perform.
I think it's interesting. So, a bit of a exclusive, shall we say, as of recording this at 3 o'clock on the Monday afternoon. Tomorrow night, me and Lauren, the other presenter on the preview, are having the pleasure of interviewing Steve Morrison, the Sutton manager, for a one-off podcast. And I think looking into Sutton and doing the research for that, I actually said on the preview, and I thought I was going to get quite a lot of pelters of. They've had such a turnover of players, and such euphoria of the new sort of investment from Paul Brunson and all that sort of media speculation off the back of that, and the eyes of a celebrity owner, if you would. I think that can kind of get you distracted away from the actual thing that that's most important in terms of football results. And we obviously we're going to touch on it with Barnet soon, but I said to you before we came on air, you wonder if teams are signing 8, 9, 10 players in a postseason, will it take that sort of extra couple of weeks for them to gel? And do you think this is something that we might have to expect with Sutton as well as a few other teams in this division, that if they've gone out and made wholesale changes, it might take them a couple of weeks to get the sort of rhythm found?
Yeah, I would agree. I think it takes any team, it's so difficult when you're bringing in the amount of players. Barnet brought in, I think, 13 or 14 new players, and to bring them in, gel them in, have a full pre-season, and then get them combining with the players from last. It's a tough challenge, and I think it's tough when you bring in so many new players from different clubs levels. If they're going up or if they're coming back down to this level, it is tough and it does take time. So I think it's a wait and see thing, but I do think Sutton will do well this year.
I think it's interesting as well. The last thing I'll say on this game, and then we'll move on, is I think it's probably teams with sort of polar opposite expectations in terms of. I don't think there'll be many Sutton fans saying that they can go and challenge for a league title in this division this season, but I think quite a lot of the Sutton fans will probably be maybe expecting a playoff push and a playoff space, whereas Tamworth are probably coming into this, and I know they've had back-to-back promotions, but they're probably looking, consolidation season and sort of surviving relegation. But looking at the stats and the highlights, it kind of looked like Tamworth were the better side, really, and kind of were unlucky to not get the free,
I think they play with a lot of freedom, though. I think if you see the amount of goals they've scored in the past 2 seasons, they're not going to set up as a team that's going to sit back, try and get a point, maybe a win if they can. They're going to go and play, which will, I think, help them. But you will probably see this season quite a few big scorelines, similar to Dorking, I think, last year. But it will be tough for them. But I feel that if they play with their freedom, anything's possible for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's two teams to keep an eye on as the season goes for probably opposite objectives, definitely. But considering you are the new host of this podcast, and I don't want to get off on a wrong foot and wind you up too much, shall we get the Barnet performance out the way? And so obviously, on paper, really, regardless of whether whether you are sort of title favourites or how many signings you've had, for as much as we take the mick out of them for the pitch and that they have an Olympic swimming team for the pitch last season and all the pitch problems, Halifax are known to be a very hard team to beat. They're very structured, they're very sort of set well. Chris Millington has them well drilled, and it's never going to be an easy fixture on opening day. But in terms of the stats and sort of the highlights of that game, I think if you're a Halifax fan, you're probably thinking on another day we would have got the 3 points from that game. But listen, I'll let you do your analysis and review a little bit because you'll know more than me. But in terms of an opening day for Barnet, of course it's only opening day, but it's definitely not the start you wanted, right, in terms of momentum.
No, not at all. And I know preseason doesn't mean a whole much, but to go unbeaten in preseason and then the problem was I wasn't really concerned about if we lose the game, if we draw. It was the performance was so poor from probably the start to the finish. We didn't really defend, couldn't break the lines. Players like Zach Bryant, you want to get on the ball, get him forward, but I think to be fair to Halifax, they were very rigid, and you know what, they did deserve to win the game, and sometimes that's how it is. And for us, it's not too concerning just because it's the first game and it's against a team such as Halifax. But I think a relook could be in need because we've got so many new players. So I think it's just letting them gel, giving them. Hopefully by the start of September it goes a bit better. But no, not the start we want. But Halifax are a good side. I see them up there again this year.
It's interesting, I think, with Barnet for me because our friends at Bees Pod was I seen a tweet before the season started and said it's unusual for Barnet to be going off as title favourites, and you wonder whether you'll be able to. I know football players should be able to handle weight and expectation of any sort of circumstance, but we've seen it at Boundary Park last year a little bit. Some of the players they shrunk a little bit in front of big crowds, because at Boundary Park we're getting 8,000 fans a week, and you don't really get that at this level. And I wonder whether it's the same sort of mentality to start with for Barnet in terms of because you are the sort of title favourites or up there to be title favourites. Is there a sort of added weight on Brennan and his players to sort of come out and perform week in week out? And do you think they'll live up to expectation and also be able to manage that expectation?
I think it's a tough one. Brennan's always look. To be fair, he's gone out and said we want to go be champions. That is the aim from his side and the players. But I feel like we kind of need to wait in just a little bit. I don't think people say we'll walk away with the league. I really can't see it happening. It's not going to be a Chesterfield situation like last season, where to be fair to us, we did keep in touch for about 3 months, and then I think the wheels fell off a little bit in November. But it's a tough one. I feel like we need to sort of give the players a little bit more time just to gel, and once we get the gel in, because that's what happened last season. We went on a 2-month unbeaten run, and when we're like that, I think we're going to be a tough team to beat. But I don't think it's going to happen instantly. So I think give it a bit of time, and we can just see where we go. But I think there is a lot of expectation from the fans because of what happened last year, especially that game against Solihull, where we just collapsed completely. And I think fans, it's still quite raw at the moment about that result. So we just need to try and get away from that and just build and get up the table really.
Yeah,
and try and kick on.
I think it's interesting as well because at half time of that game it was 0-0, wasn't it? So you thought that there's nothing much happening here, and then the sort of second half kicked into life, and all 3 goals were scored in the second half. But from a Halifax perspective, I think they're another sort of team that will have sort of expectations and dreams of harbouring a strong playoff place. They that obviously that I guess with Halifax it all depends on that pitch, really, doesn't it? I know it sounds strange to say that in August, but you've seen how many postponements he had last year. You've seen they had to go and play in other grounds. But in terms of a squad, I know it. They've lost some key players. Like Jamie Stott and people like that who are sort of big sort of leaders in that team. But I do think with Millington at the helm, they're always going to be tough to beat, and they'll always put up a fight, and it'll be really interesting to see them. But in terms of that one performance from them, I think they've got to be buzzing with that. Playing the title favourites and getting the 3 points. You can't ask for a better start than that. But I just wanted to get your opinions on Halifax, probably from a little bit about what we've seen them last year, but also what you probably expect from them this year, and where you probably sort of see them finishing, and what a sort of realistic expectation for the Shea would be.
Yeah, I'd say why they should get playoffs. I think the quality that they possess, and Chris Millington's done unbelievable job. Even last season, they're a bit unlucky in the playoffs. I think if their ground wasn't postponed, and we played them last season in Accrington, I think Oldham played them in Chesterfield or something like that. But yeah, so it's like if they can keep that ground, that is the issue though. But I think they'll get in the playoffs, and on their day, they're a very good side. So I think it'll be a tough one, but yeah, they're a good team, and they showed that any team in this division can beat anyone. And
well, that was our slogan for the review last year. I think I know it's very cliche to say in football, but I think the National League is the actual one that proves it. Like anyone can beat anyone. But
yeah,
last season we didn't finish in the playoffs, but I'm gonna just remind Chris just to get it out of the way early. Oldham beat Barnet home and away last year. Like it can happen, can't it? I think the sort of there's that many. The thing is now probably the sort of level and competitive nature and skill level of the division has developed that that much stronger in the last couple of seasons, because the amount of ex-EFL teams in here, and the way I see it is it should be League 5, really, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
I get it's non-league, but this is it's such a good standard of football now, and especially with just the one automatic champion and then the one playoffs. It's so tight. Everyone's vying for it. There's some massive teams down here, so I think the importance of winning that opening day and getting that opening day victory is important, because then momentum can carry you, But I think from Halifax point of view, you've got, like I said, you've got to be happy with that. I think we know how Halifax are going to play. It's not going to be the pretty sort of exciting football, but it's going to be the sort of tough to beat, very physical, very physically demanding side, and sometimes you might think how to beat Halifax, but then actually doing it is a complete other kettle of fish, isn't it? So I think
Yeah.
obviously it's a great start for the Shaman, definitely, and they'll have their own ambitions, and obviously poor start for your boys. But like I said before we came on the call, it's game one. There's 45 other games. Like I'm not too worried about Barnet just yet. But I do
Right.
think that integration period for all the new signings and stuff is going to be important, and it's going to have to happen soon, because I seen a stat sheet before the season started, and some of your quality options, in like your squad depth options, is ridiculous. I mean, we're not making it a Barnet podcast, but one signing that excites me a little bit is, well, I say a little bit, a lot, is Jermaine Francis, because obviously he rose to fame on um, YouTube football, if that's what we want to call it, with hashtag United. Then went Chelmsford. Is it Chelmsford City? I
I was
think.
just yeah.
And then obviously come here, but he is quite a young raw talent, so he's definitely one to look at, isn't he? But look, I think nothing to worry about for Barnet. Yeah, I mean, if you lose next weekend, then there might be some slight alarm bells running. Then if it's two defeats to open up your season, but yeah, great win for Halifax. Bad start for Barney, but nothing more than that at this stage. But to sort of, on the flip side, I am going to take it away with my boys, and we played again. National League newcomers on with Braintree Town, and I said before coming on here, with them sort of sides, the sort of unknown quantities, because I'll be honest, I don't spend a lot of my time watching the North and South divisions, so I didn't really know what to expect. Obviously, they've made some good signings. They've got the centre half of you, Joe. Is it Joe Green?
Joe Greenwood, yeah.
Joe Greenwood. They've got Ini Young. They've got John Akende. Proper like physical bully striker that can score goals in this division. But look, we just didn't allow that. We set the pace from minute one. We were playing fast, attacking, dynamic football. We were actually playing triangles. There was periods where I had to turn around to my uncle, who came with me to watch the game, and I said, I can't believe this, because I got so used to seeing Oldham play this sort of one-dimensional Route 1 style football, pumping it up to Mike Fondorp, and he had nobody to hold it to or link it with, and all that was gone. And I know it's only game week one, and we can't get too caught up, but comfortable. If we would have won 5-0, 6-0, I probably wouldn't have been, it wouldn't have been a massive surprise, really. I think Braintree, obviously, they had a very dubious penalty. Charlie Raglan kind of shoulder barged his man out the way in the penalty area, and the referee give it, but it was the softest penalty I've ever seen. I think I could take a penalty harder than that, to be fair, and I'm in a wheelchair. So it was a comfortable save for Matt Hudson, but one that he had to make, of course. And then we had two debutants scoring the goals in Jerison Achegbum, the winger we got from Rochdale, who is funny, isn't it? Football's about opinions, and obviously nobody's going to get carried away. But when we signed him from Rochdale fans, probably because the rivalry exists between the two clubs, but they were like, oh, he's rubbish boys, he's shit boys. You'll see, he'll be dog turd for you. He won't do anything. But every time he got the ball, he was willing to run at a man, front a man up, and he was electric, and he got his goal thanks to, I would probably say, I know it's only game week 1, and you're probably thinking, Aaron, you're a bit deluded, but if you haven't seen it yet, look at the assist from Dan Gardner, our midfielder, and tell me, I think you'll struggle to see a better ball than that all season. Basically, he was in his own half. He pings the ball in the air. The first touch is absolutely exquisite from Jez, and then he beats the keeper 1-on-1, and then the second goal was a bit of a scrap, really, because we've got Regan Ogle, the right back that we signed from Scunthorpe in the summer. He has an absolute weapon of a long throw on him this season now, which I think is going to cause carnage for a lot of teams. So he threw the long throw in, and their keeper flapped it, and it bounced to Harry Charsley, who we signed from we signed in the summer with EFL experience, who tapped it into an empty net. And then the third and final goal was our cult hero, Mike Fondop, who was on hand to again tap in an empty net after some good work for Ollie Hammond, getting a shot away at the keeper that the keeper fumbled. And look, I'm happy, and like it's nice to see Oldham start positively, because it was our first home league opening victory for 8 years. So you can forgive me for being happy and getting excited, but obviously we know we're going to have sort of lots of sterner tests, and this is only the start. But you can only beat what's in front of you, can't we? And we did that convincingly. In terms of a Braintree perspective, obviously that their probably aim is to survive, or at least give themselves a good account if they can't survive. But I think if they play like that, they'll get picked off and found out every week, because it was very one-dimensional. They didn't seem to have a game plan. But I'm just a bit curious, really, in terms of a direct promotion rival. Sort of, what are you expecting from Oldham this year? Like, how do you see us? Where do you see us at the minute?
Well, after last year, I said after that game when we lost, I think it was 2-0 at Boundary Park. I was like, Oldham are going to do well, but never materialised. But I do worry about Oldham quite a bit as a title rival. I think our games against Oldham are going to be proper tough tests, and especially like if you're playing with this passing football that really is working. I know it's Braintree, but 3-0 win is no goals conceded on opening day is a good one. So I think Oldham are a team not to not worry about, because they're massive. Like, they're probably for top biggest team in the league, but I think people have put them under the radar just because how they played last season and the year before, just not being able to get in the playoff places. But I do think Oldham will be up there with us.
I think you hit the nail on the head there, and obviously I'm going to be a little bit biased here because I am an Oldham fan. But towards the start of the season, I've seen a lot of respected journalists do season previews, and none of them really had us in a playoff place. Never mind a title, a sort of consideration. And some Oldham fans might be a bit disheartened by that, but I wasn't, because football's about opinions. Seasons are not won or lost on predictions, and also, like, I'm quite happy. Like last year when Chesterfield were up here, we signed James Norwood, and probably it came back to bite him in the arse a little bit. But on his announcement video, he said, let's go and win a league now." But whereas this year we've gone under the radar, we've signed in the areas we needed to strengthen very well. We obviously, like you said, pre-season can't count for much because you won was unbeaten in all your pre-seasons, but we played 3 League One opposition in pre-season, and beat 2 of them and drew once at home. So the foundations are there, and we could have a good season. I think the home form for us will be vital this year, because it was horrendous last year. The away form would have got us promoted, no doubt, but the home form needs to sort itself out. So you can't ask for more than 3 goals and a clean sheet, really, can you? But someone else that got off to a very, very good start in terms of, they've had quite a busy summer, and obviously they had a lot of worries last year in terms of whether they were going to survive, ownership issues, sort of, this is probably our closest and fiercest rivals in this division, Rochdale. They were away to, again, new boys, Boston United, and let's just say they got off to a very impressive start for the season as well, didn't they, Chris? Do you want to take us away on that and just touch upon that a little bit for us?
I think Rochdale, I think people have got them up there in the playoffs this year, and rightly so, because the signings they've made, and I think having that ownership structure that they now have is going to be really key. And I think last season I think when we played them away, they absolutely destroyed it. I think we lost 4-2, but they, at that time, I think we played them about September. You thought maybe they are actually going to go on and do something, but for obvious reasons with the ownership, it didn't really work out. But a 3-0 win on opening day against a newly promoted Boston side is a great result. Like, you don't know what to expect from these newly promoted sides, especially going away as well. Their first game back in the National League, and they would have been really pumped and ready for this game. But a Devontae Rodney double shocked that. So a 3-0 win for Rochdale, a 3-0 win for Oldham. It's a good start. Good start from the Manchester sides.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely, and like, look, for as much as I like to banter, because I live in Rochdale, unfortunately, so I've got a lot of Rochdale supporting friends, and some of my family support Rochdale. So as much as I like to say, oh, I hope they lose every week and whatever, like after what they went through last year, it's good to see them actually just being able to focus on the football, and I put them in the playoffs along with us and Barnet in that sort of conversation in my season preview. So because I actually think they've made some really sensible signings as well. So yeah, great start for Jim McNulty's men. Like you say, Boston again, probably similar to Braintree in terms of it's project survival, isn't it really? And or maybe even project best showing of survival in terms of if they're not strong enough to survive, that's fair enough. But you don't want to come in with like a record low points total or something, do you? With these teams, you want to fight for every point, and I'm sure Boston will be up there and cause people problems. I just think sometimes it can take a while to sort of get accustomed to the physicality of this league, because I'll be honest, when Oldham first dropped into this division, because I'd been used to seeing us play like League One level for them in my time watching Oldham. I just thought, oh yeah, you know what I mean. It's gonna be a lot of physicality, but not a lot of technical ability in this division. And how wrong can you be sometimes? Some of these teams sweep you away, And so yeah, I think Boston will put a fight up for themselves, but I think they need to probably a couple more games to adjust to the level of competition in this division. What are your sort of thoughts and feelings on Boston this season?
Yeah, I would agree with you. To be fair, I think they're in a tough position. Like, they weren't near the top of the. I think they finished fourth in the playoffs, and then they went up to win it against Brackley. So I think it's tough, especially when you're kind of off it a little bit. Same with Braintree. Like, they weren't the highest team in the playoffs. I think Worthing were the top team who they lost to. But again, I think the main aim for them and Braintree is just to survive and then see what happens in another season if they can try and maintain that, get up to a mid-table position. But I think they'll be. I think they'll be just. I don't think they have enough this year, but they've got some experienced players. Adam Marriott, experienced striker. If they can keep him fit and if he can get some goals, I think they'll be all right. But if time will
Yeah,
tell.
absolutely, absolutely. And now you might be thinking here, what is going on in this podcast? And nearly half an hour in, and they haven't mentioned probably the biggest result of the weekend. And we're getting there. We're getting there. We wanted to build up your anticipation, but I think it's about time we touch upon it, don't you, Chris? So,
Yeah.
yeah, we've got. So it was Rob Elliott's Gateshead playing at home to Ebbsfleet United, who survived by the skin of the teeth last year, really, if we're being honest, at Boreham Wood's expense. But Gateshead, again, probably a lot of people shouts for the most attractive team on the day in this division. Some of the football they can play is outstanding, and they proved that again on Saturday with a absolute thumping 5-1 demolition job of Ebbsfleet at home. So yeah, like Gateshead, obviously people are fancying, but with the sort of uncertainty of the ground and whatever's going to happen with that, you can never be too sure, really, can you? And I guess that's frustrating for the supporters and the players. But look, they can only control what they can control, and that's the football side of things, isn't it? And you've got people like Greg Ollie scoring a hat trick on opening day. Like that is like phenomenal. Obviously, Gateshead were um up there, around there, and playing this sort of style last year, so it's not really much of a surprise. But to do that on opening day is ridiculous, and yeah. So, like, in terms of Gateshead, what are you obviously? What do you think on this performance, and how do you think you'll see their season going?
Yeah, I think they'll do unbelievably well. I think they could get in the top three this year. I really do. Like the style of play they play is unbelievable. We lost 2-0 last year at the Hive. They ran us ragged. We couldn't get on the ball. And we're a team that we'll average probably 60-70% possession. I think we had about 40. But Gateshead are a team who I think really I think if they didn't have that stadium issue, they could really be flying, because that will put some players off. That if they can't get promoted, what's the point? You can't step up with Gateshead. But the way they're playing, who's going to stop them? I'm not sure who. But if they can get consistent and keep winning and make their home a fortress, I really can't see them being stopped.
Mm-hmm. And I think the thing is with Gateshead is they obviously lost Mike Williamson, to MK Dons, which people thought was a massive blow, but they made the very sensible appointment of appointing his assistant in Rob Elliott. And I think when you do that, it's kind of a bit like the National League Pep and Arteta, isn't it? Really, you've seen how well Arteta has done in the last couple of seasons at Arsenal, but that's because of what he's learned under Pep at Man City. And I think it's very similar to in the Gateshead situation, in terms of Mike Williamson found this very, very attractive style of football and sort of imprinted it and implemented it. But then Rob Elliott's just kind of been able to take that baton and just take it onto a complete new level and add his own little twist in it. So I think we talk about, sometimes when it comes to managerial appointments, we talk about the need for sort of patience and stability in terms of a setup. And I think Gateshead have got that bang on, and that's probably why they've managed to do so well over the last 2.5, 3 seasons,
Yeah, agree. Like if you've got a manager that has come in, they know the system already, then you can just take the reins and then push it in that same direction, and it makes it so much easier for the players as well. That if you've got a new manager comes in, new style. If the player's not wanted, it makes it very tough. So I think for Gateshead, they just need to continue what they're doing, and they're in a really good position. So they can keep the way they're playing, sort out the stadium issue. There's a bright future there for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And look, they've got some fantastic players at this level. We've just spoke about a hat trick on opening day for Ollie, and Callum Whelan and Regan Booty.
Yeah.
Some really, really good, strong technicians at this level of football. And like I said, I think they'll take some stopping. I think it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see them play against a team that might want to play a similar style, in terms of, obviously it's only game one, but if Barnet go there and fancy playing a bit of football, or Oldham, I know Oldham have them in their opening 5 games as well. So if we play that football that swept aside Braintree at weekend, it'll be interesting to see how they can adapt to that. But I think it'd be stupid to write Gateshead off this season for a very successful season for sure. But before we get into the rest of the action, I think now is probably a perfect time to call for an ad break and let you wonderful listeners listen to our wonderful sponsors, who without we wouldn't be able to produce these podcasts. So we will be back in 2 minutes, and yeah, enjoy the break. And we are back. So I think it's about time we get into the second half of the action, really. Obviously, before the break, we left off talking about Gateshead, but another team I wanted to talk about, or I say team really, but I'm speaking probably individual in terms of this performance was Fylde versus Solihull. Now, we have a very, very vocal, the admin of our National League Natter Twitter account is a Solihull Moors fan, and for the summer all I've heard is, oh, Solihull are going to be right up there, Solihull are going to be this, Solihull are going to be that. And obviously I can't give him too much because he's only opening day, but Nick Horton shut him up a little bit, and I'm sick of saying it, but I feel like this podcast last year, and it's going to start this year, is a Nick Horton appreciation podcast in terms of how is that man at this level? I know he's not exactly young now, but still, surely somebody in the AFL has got to take a gamble on him at some point, because just some of his goals and some of his technique is ridiculous, and he helped his Fylde side to get a big 3-2 victory over many people's contenders this year in Solihull Moors. So yeah, Chris, talk to me about the Nick Horton show, and also feel free to rub a bit more into Callum. We don't mind here. We don't mind. We know Callum can take it, and he loves us here at National League Natter anyway.
Well, I think if Solihull are losing after what happened to us last season, I'm not going to be complaining. But Nick Horton, he's class. Like he does it every season. Like a hat-trick on opening day against a team that's probably going to be up there. He's insane. So I think Fylde. I think they'll be contenders for playoffs. I don't think they'll get playoffs. So I don't think they've got that squad depth. But I think they've come back to the National League and they want a bit of a vengeance for how they went down and then to come back up. But for Solihull, it's been a tough last 3 games. A playoff final defeat, a FA Trophy defeat, and to start the season down to 10 men with the defeat. It's not looking good for Solihull. So, but it's only first game, so we'll have to see on them.
We had a little bit of banter in our group chat before the season started, and we said we should do a one-off podcast episode on Solihull and call it Solihull Moors serial bottlers. So who knows? In May we could be producing that. You never know. But listen, I don't want angry Solihull fans in our DMs on opening day. That's not really what I want. Although we will take the interaction definitely, and we will take the views. So if you do disagree and want to stick up for your team, then feel free. But obviously, it's only game week number 1, as we keep saying. But look, we're just having a little bit of banter with our one of our colleagues. That's all it is. But yeah. So obviously, not the greatest of starts for Solihull, and obviously they've had some big departures in the summer as well. In terms of probably the biggest one being Joe Sabara going to Doncaster, and it's still to be seen whether they'll sort of pick themselves up. And like I said, I still expect them to be around there. Of course, I do, but you don't want to be sort of kicking off the season with such a high scoring game in my opinion, especially if you're not at the right end of it, but it's easy for me to say that now my team's won 3-0 without conceding a goal, granted. Sorry, I just thought I'd keep letting people know that, because this is the thing that as an Oldham fan, I've never ever seen Oldham at the top half of the table, so I have to take my chances of a little bit of banter when I can do. But yes, I still expect Solihull to be up there. Like you say, I think Fylde will be up there as well, because I think they have some fantastic players, and I said all the way through last year, I said they have too many good players and too much chances to struggle for too long, and in the end they got themselves away from the relegation danger and survive comfortably in the end, and I do think they'll push on. So that's definitely one to keep an eye on for sure. But I think next up, shall we talk about 2 teams that I think yet again probably harbour playoff shouts in terms of Southend United and York City. Now, we all know last year, the well documented struggles of Southend United and the sort of miracle job. Really, we won't like downplay the miracle job that Kevin Mayer did with his Southend team. The points deduction and to finish, how close they were in the end to the playoffs, and now the embargo has been lifted. I fancy Southend to be up there definitely. I think they'll be in contention, and I also fancy York to be up there, especially if they can sort out if Matt Ugler can avoid playing Football Manager from time to time with York and just let it happen naturally. I definitely think York have the sort of capabilities and natural talent in the squad to harbour a place as well. Obviously, that they met on opening day. The game ended 1-1, so it indicates a very even opening contest between two probably teams with similar aspirations. But yeah, Chris, do you want to touch upon Southend and York for us, and what your perceptions of both teams this season are?
Yeah, I think it's good that Southend have got their ownership issues all solved, which is huge for them. I think it really it's big for the town, it's big for the club, and also they've signed a couple good players. Josh Walker, I'm not the biggest fan of. If any Barnet fans listen, they know why I don't like Josh Walker, but I can't stand him. But he's good at football, so I think it's a good signing for Southend, and I think he will get goals this season. And adding into even the quality they had last season, I know they didn't have huge amounts of players, but the players they did have were quality. So I think this year, I just don't. I think they'll fall just short of the playoffs. But it depends. If they can bring in more players, I think that will help their chances. And with
Yeah,
York, I think they're. I don't think I don't really rate them too highly. I think every time I've seen York play last season, I didn't think they were that good. So I think they're going to struggle again. And I don't think the
isn't
ownership issue helps with York either.
I think it's interesting with York because I'm just looking at the lineup they went with, for the opening day, and they've got people like Billy Chadwick, Alex Hunt, who was on loan at Oldham a couple of seasons ago from Grimsby, I want to say. He was on loan from, I think
Yeah,
maybe that's where they might have bought him from. They've got Leno John Lewis, his name is a shop, who obviously opened his account on opening day. And like I said, I do think they've got enough talent there to push for it. It just depends on ownership issues and whether Mister I want to play Football Manager can temper his expectations and like the way. Also, I think obviously we don't want to get this podcast in trouble and liable and stuff, so I won't say too much. But I think he should be potentially maybe a little bit less active on social media this year, if I'm being honest, because it seemed like he was more interested in social media spats and Twitter spats last year than certain aspects of the football club. But I will stop it. I will stop it there before I get myself into trouble, definitely. But yeah, so that is York and that is Southend. So we are nearly getting to the last couple of games, and then we've got a few features that we're going to throw in as well in terms of naming a couple of standout players, because we were going to do a team of the week, but I'll be honest, I've not really had much chance to write a team of the week out. So for this week, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give a few honourable mentions for a few standout players across the division, and then we'll take the team of the week from next week, if that's okay with you, Chris.
yeah, all good for it, mate.
And then, so to finish off, then with the last couple of games, we will start with. In fact, let's start this last little section off with Altrincham, who I think obviously, last season they probably had the player of the division in Chris Clark, if I'm being honest, and he quite rightly got his move higher, away from this division. I personally have Alti to struggle this year, if I'm being honest. Obviously, of course, now I've said that, of course he went on and got the win. They were playing Woking, and they won 1-0 at home to Woking on Saturday. thanks to new boy, former Halifax right back Tyler Golden scored an absolute beauty of a goal. I don't know whether you've seen it, Chris, but it was an absolute curler.
Cracker.
Yeah, he cut in and put it at the top corner. But I do think long term, I do think the sort of absence of not because the thing is with Christian Clark, it wasn't just the creativity. He was a big goal scorer as well, and a big portion of Alti's goals, And I don't see them being able to play the same sort of style without him. But I might be wrong. But in terms of trying to prove people wrong, the 1-0 victory at home to Woking is a great start. But it seemed like a bit of an ill-tempered game, really. Two red cards. Obviously, one was a double yellow, but one was a straight red. So yeah, like, what are your thoughts on the game? And would you agree with my sentiment about the sort of value of Christian Clark to this Alti team and like the struggle for finding the same sort of consistent level of goals and assists?
Yeah, I would agree. Don't think Oldham are going to be as high as they were last season. The loss of Christian Clark to Peterborough is absolutely massive, and I think also Woking. I don't really rate them. And I know they've signed two of our old players, Dale Gorman and Ben Winter. And Dale Gorman, as if anyone's ever seen Dale Gorman play, a red card on opening day is no shock at all. So I think Woking need to be careful, like last season. But Altrincham, I don't think they'll get playoffs, but it won't be as bad as some people think.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all credit to the guy, and I'm not going to come on here and slay it. Well, I am a little bit, but not to the extent where I get myself in trouble. But Alti took Joe Nuttall from us on loan as a target striker, and if I'm being honest, he works hard, but my problem with Joe Nuttall is he's 6 foot plus, and he's scared to head a football. Like, he's got all the attributes and all the sort of looks to be a big presence and target man, and then his work ethic and sort of unwillingness to head a football really surprises me. So look, I hope he has an absolute blazing season for Alti, and they sign him, and there's a good deal there financially for Oldham, but in terms of goals and filling that sort of gap left by Christian Clark, I don't think he is the one personally, but we shall see. We shall see. Yeah. I think it's fair to say I'm more calmer about the prospect of an Altrincham minus Christian Clark than with him. But I do feel the same about Woking as well. To be fair, I think it'll just be another scrap for survival season from them. To be fair, but I think they will probably the experience of doing it last year and the money they did it will give them sort of that confidence that if push comes to shove they can do it again, and they've been there and done that now, so they've got the experience, they've got the t-shirt, and that can sort of be sort of a good thing for them going forward, I think, in terms of that sort of scrap. But shall we talk about the only other new boys I don't think we've touched upon yet in Forest Green? And so Forest Green were playing
Aldershot.
And
3-3 draw.
yeah, it was a 6-goal thriller with a 3-3 draw to start the season, and for a neutral, that's probably the tie of the weekend, isn't it? I think. So obviously, at half time, Aldershot were actually leading 2-1 at half time. Aldershot. I've seen people on social media, and I think it's quite unfair to the Shots to say that they think Aldershot threw it away in the sense of they raced into a 2-0 lead, and they sort of had it in the palm of their hands. But Forest Green, again, are going to be up there, you would imagine. So to get a point and to score 3 goals against them is a great start. But I think there will probably be a little bit of disappointment there that they couldn't have capitalised and got the 3 points, especially being in such a strong position to start with, don't you?
Yeah, I think if you go 2-0 up in any game of football, you'd be disappointed if you don't get all 3. But I think overall it's a decent start for Aldershot. They were strong last year, just unlucky to just miss out on the playoffs. But to get a point over a team like Forest Green, who should be challenging for top end of the playoffs, I think that's a brilliant start for them. and I think Aldershot. I think they'll do well. I think it's a loss. Tolaj leaving is a loss, but
And
they've got
Stoke.
players like Jack. Yeah, he's gone to and Stokes, and I think players like Jack Barham will step up, and I think they'll be okay. I think Aldershot are a good club. They make good business decisions, and they've got a really good manager in Tommy. So we'll have to see how that one goes, but I think they'll do okay.
Yeah, definitely. In terms of a Forest Green perspective, I think, they've had quite a turbulent few seasons. I think it's pretty safe to say, with the sort of disappointing reign of Mr. Troy Deeney, shall we say? What was it? How many days did he last? 30? Was it
Oh, it's like 30 days.
35, 40?
Wasn't long.
And then obviously dropping down to this division, they made some very impressive signings. But like we said, with signings early doors, you can make all these signings in the world, and if they don't gel straight away, you're going to struggle, But I do expect Forest Green to be up there, don't you? I expect them to be one of the title favourites. But like we were saying this year, this season, you're seeing now your Wrexhams are gone, now you're not as County are gone, now your Stockports are gone, now your Chesterfields are gone. This is probably the most open title race and promotion race the National League has seen probably in the last 5 years, whereas there's, 4 or 5 teams there, your Southends, your Oldhams, your Barnets, your Forest Greens, your Rochdales, that your Gatesheads, that you could all see winning the league or at least going up by the playoffs. So I think it's so important for a good start and a good bit of momentum at the start of the season. But I do expect Forest Green to be up there, don't you?
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on Forest Green?
I think they made some really good, smart signings. To bring in Ben Tozer I think that's a really good signing. That's showing a bit of intent from Forest Green. To bring in a player that's captained Wrexham, has gone back-to-back promotions, the opposite of Forest Green. I think they'll do really well. I think they're strong, and I think we've got them next Tuesday. I think that'll be a really tough game for us. So I think it'll be interesting to see how they sort of perform in the next sort of 5-6 games. So we'll have to see how they do.
And this is the thing we should highlight, for as much as I want to look at the league table and see Oldham second there, and have a little bit of a laugh, league tables and league positions, they don't really, to me, they don't mean much really until 10, 12, 15 games in. That's when you can proper start seeing a table take shape. I don't think anyone's going to look at a table unless Oldham win the next 6 and Barnet lose the next 6, and then people might be like, oh, you know what I mean? Oh, now we've got something to look at. But until something serious like that happens, you can't really take note of the league table till probably about just before Christmas, I would say. Would you agree with that, Chris?
Yeah, I'd say it's like the first, just when the trophy draw comes out. I think that's on the 13th of December, which is about 15, 16 games deep. I'd say that's about enough time to see who's in contention for promotion and relegation. But to say that, look what happened with Grimsby a couple of years ago, and I think it was Doncaster last season. Last 17 games, I don't think
in
they
League
lost.
2, yeah.
Yeah, in League 2, and Grimsby, when they went up, they were on a run. So you can't tell. This league is so unpredictable. Anyone could be anyone. So you're never going to know.
Momentum is key for sure, isn't it?
Yeah, massive.
But yeah, so then to finish off, I think I'm right in thinking this is the final game to cover, isn't it? It is.
Got 2 more.
Oh, we got 2 more.
Maidenhead, Eastleigh.
Am I going early? Yeah, I'm going a bit early. So we've got Maidenhead, Eastleigh, which was a rather routine 2-0 away win for the Spitfires. In terms of Eastleigh, I don't really know what to expect from them either. So obviously they had, Superman Paul McCallum last year, topping the top goal scorer charts in this division, but nothing else really around that. like worries me, if I'm being honest, and that's probably going to come and bite me in the bottom. And I'm sure there'll be a few Eastleigh fans that are not going to be happy with me here. But even like Scott Quigley, I've seen him play for Rochdale, and I thought he was I know players can develop in a couple of years, but I've seen him, and I didn't think he was anything special. I think Chris Maguire on his day in this division could rip it up, but I do think he's getting on a little bit. He's getting old, Obviously, McCallum, I still expect to score 15 plus goals this year, if I'm being honest. But look, I'm saying all this, and they won the opening game, But Maidenhead, I think, are going to be in slap bang in trouble. I think. I just don't think they've got much to them this year, really. So I think it was a very much routine, expected win for Eastleigh, don't you?
Yeah, well, Maidenhead are the kings of staying up every single season. Every time I'll predict them to go down, and they'll finish 20th. But maybe that ends this year. But I don't know. I think Maidenhead are a weird one, but so I think they're both very strange teams. But if McCallum stays at Eastleigh, I think Eastleigh they won't go down, but they'll be fine. But if they lose him, I think they could be a bit of trouble, but they should stay up comfortably, I think.
Yeah. And then the final game of game week number 1, and then we can go on to a couple of standout performers to finish off episode number 1 of the National League Review, is Lauren's soft spot favourites, Dagenham and Redbridge, with a 2-0 win against Wealdstone at home. Now, Daggers are a very interesting team to me in terms of, they had Effion last season, and players like that, and they can sort of cause anybody problems if they really want to. And they won on opening day, which is most important. But Wealdstone are, I feel like I say the same about Wealdstone every season, but to me, they're just your slap bang sort of middle of the road team. I don't ever expect them to push for a playoffs, but I don't ever expect them to be too deep in a relegation scrap either. So yeah, like, not much to talk about on that one, unfortunately, but obviously great start for the Daggers. They'll probably have their own aspirations of an outside playoff push this year, and Wealdstone will probably just be slap bang mid-table. Unless you've got anything to add to that, Chris?
No, nothing to add. It's just a standard National League fixture, that one.
Yeah, so perfect. So then, I think what we should do is we should pick 3 players to give a bit of a standout mention considering the Olympics has just finished. I think we should do a bronze, silver, gold player performance of the weekend, don't you? So I will start with my player, and yes, call me biased. I don't really care. I think it would be outrageous not to say it. I think I'm happy to put him at silver, if I'm being honest. I think for an opening day debut for a player that another team has completely written off and told us that he'll be awful for us. The way Jerison I want to do his name right. Let me just make sure I get it right. Jerison Achegbum, the way he started his Oldham campaign and his life in an Oldham shirt was so impressive. And we've not had that sort of wide, pacey, tricky customer out wide for many years. Even Barnet have had Idris Khan the last couple of seasons to do that sort of thing, but we've not had that. So to have that, and to have one player that kind of just gets bums off seats, a bit unpredictable in terms of you don't know what he's going to do with the ball. Like I said to my uncle, like, he's the type of player, if he loses the ball, I'm not going to be too bothered, because at least he's tried to make something happen with football, or at least he's trying to take some risks, and I don't mind that. So yeah, Jez has got my seal of approval for a silver spotting player of the week. So do you want to give me one from you? And then I think we're pretty, just so we're making sure that it's a different player to what I'm going to say here. I think we're pretty agreed on who should go in the gold position this week, right?
I hope so.
Okay, so do you want to hit me with your bronze shout then?
Bronze shout. Right. So in bronze, I've gone for Greg Ollie. Like, count me out.
Oh, whoa. What did you see my
Wait,
face then? Hang on. I'll
I
let you
know,
do your
I saw your.
I'll let you do your explanation, but just so we're clear, if any Gateshead fan has a problem with this,
don't come for me,
come
please.
come for
Don't
the
come for me.
come for the Twitter account. But remember, it was Chris that said this because I made a point of saying I think we're sure
I,
on the goal because you put somebody that got an opening day hat trick in third position.
I know. Controversial decision, but I would go with him because I know they played him. I expect them to beat Ebbsfleet, but he did play very well, and it is a great performance. But there is someone who I feel is his performance was better in gold. But I think you probably do know. You probably realise who now. But
Okay, hang
yeah, I
on.
think
Before you do that, then just to balance it out, I'm actually going to move Jez down to bronze and put
okay.
Leg second
That's probably
because
very fair.
the guy has got an hat trick and you was going to put him third in a list of three. Crazy. So Greg takes silver.
I
But
would.
go on then. Take us away with gold.
Well, gold. I think now. I think you know who gold is Nick Horton. Like to get a hat trick, opening day against a team like Solihull, who are going to go for promotion. I think that's a brilliant achievement, and Nick Horton will score 20 plus this season, guaranteed.
Absolutely. And you know what? I'm quite happy that that ended on that note because it'll get people talking. It's a bit of controversy. We like a bit of controversy on this podcast. I mean, I've come for Matt Ugler on week number 1. I don't know how ill-advised that is, but we shall see if he responds to us on Twitter or I'm sure he'll find something to say if he wants to use his Twitter account again for sure. But yeah, so just to recap, so that is Jez in third spot for Oldham Athletic. Greg Ollie in second spot, which I had no part in doing, but I can see why you have put Nick Hawthorne in the gold spot, and that is going to be a running theme of the podcast every week. We're going to do a medal podium for National League players. But that brings us to a perfect conclusion for the game week number 1 review of the National League Natter podcast. So, Chris, how have you found your first week covering National League action with me?
I've enjoyed it. I've had a great time. Just unfortunate our result wasn't as good. So hopefully next week I can come on, be a bit more upbeat about my team. But we will have to see. But
There's always
no, it's
next
been
week.
great.
Always next week. And yeah, so I think that's a good place to end it. Obviously, me and Lauren will be back at the end of this week to do the preview show for the next set of fixtures, and then me and Chris will be back probably same sort of similar time next Monday afternoon to do the game week 2 review. But in the meantime, we have been National League Natter. I have been Aaron.
I've been Chris.
And we will see you next week.